How's everyone going? You're back with your boy Jono for another quick math lesson. Today we're going to have a look at how to find a percentage of a given quantity, and we're going to do it with incredibly easy maths. For this lesson, we're not using our calculator. We're just seeing if we can get a ballpark figure straight away without having to do anything that's too complicated. The core skill that we need to know is how to find 10% of a value incredibly quickly. There are other skills that we can use, and we are going to develop them moving forward, but this is the fundamental idea. How can I find 10% really fast and not have to think too much or do too much maths? That is the dream. Our major skill with finding 10% is that we only need to move the decimal place once. When we were dividing and timesing by 100 in the last lesson to find that percent, we had to move the decimal place 2 positions. But if we're looking for 10%, all we have to do is move the decimal place once. And you're going to see it makes it really simple. So if I've got something like this, 10% of 40, I want you to imagine that there's a decimal place after the last number. So 40.0. I'm not going to put the 0 in, but 40 and that decimal point, it's just the exact same thing. So now if I'm finding 10% of this value, all I need to do is move that decimal place one spot to the left. So this becomes 4.0 and you're done. That is the answer. So another way to think about what 10% means, it means that it's 1/10 of the original value. So we can double check this by saying, oh, well, if this is 1/10, I can use my answer that I got, times it by 10, and it'll give me the original value. So if I did 4 times 10, that would equal 40. So I know I got the answer right. And this also works if it's not a zero number. So if I was looking for 10% of 45, again, I've just got to imagine that decimal point after the last number, after that 5, and it moves one position to the left. So my 10% of 45 is just 4.5. That is the major skill. If you can do that, you're going to be on top of this lesson. Again, for a 3-digit number, nothing really changes. There's a decimal point imagined at the end of this whole number. I move it one position, and that is my answer. For this one, it's 22.3. Again, I could double check. 22 times 10 is about 220. So I know I'm in the right ballpark with this final answer. So once we've found 10%, we can actually find 5% incredibly easily. All we need to do is use half of that value, and that's what 5% is. So if I'm looking for 5% of a number like 60, I've just got to find the 10% value by doing the exact same steps as before. Have that decimal place after the last number, move it one spot, so I've got 6, and then 5% has to be exactly half of that. So 5% of 60 is 3. Again, 5% is like 1/20th, so I could do 3 times 20, and that would give me 60. And that's a nice little way to check, just in case you're not 100% sure. Finding the 5% can be a little bit more difficult, especially when you're dealing with a non-even 10% value. So for this one, if I find 10% of 50, I can get the answer of 5, but I've got to divide it by 2. So my answer is 2.5. So this can be a little bit more confusing. Just definitely take your time. Maybe do 2 additions of that number to give you certainty that you actually got the 5% number, because it can be a little bit confusing. Like in this example, if I've got 10% of 75, my 10% value is 7.5. Finding half of this is a little bit more confusing than the questions we've been doing before. We know that it's going to be a number between 3 and 4, right? Half of 6 is 3, half of 8 is 4. So it's definitely going to be in between that number, but seeing it is a little bit more difficult. For this one, if I have 3.75 plus 3.75, that would equal 7.5. So that must be my 5% value. If you can't see these super quickly, I highly recommend doing those additions twice, maybe a little bit of guess and check, and that will definitely help you get to the right answer. So the reason that this skill is so important is that we can combine finding our 10% and our 5% to come up with weirder numbers. So 30% is just 10% plus 10% plus 10%. So if I can find 10%, I can find 30% incredibly easily just using addition. Same thing with any percentage that ends in 5. If I need to find 15%, all I've got to do is find the 10% and then add the value for 5%, and that's going to give me my final answer. So if I was looking for 30% of 60, the skill that I would use is finding 10%, which is equal to 6. And because I've got 6 3 times, or 10% plus 10% plus 10%, 30% of 60 must be equal to 18. So the maths I'm doing here is not too difficult. I'm moving a decimal place one time, and then I'm just adding. And this works for bigger numbers as well. If I've got 45% of 150, If I can find the 10% value, I know I'm going to be in the money. 10% is equal to 15 and 5% is equal to 7.5. That's half of 15. So because I've got 10% 4 times, I take that 15 value and I multiply it by 4. Or I do 15 plus 15 plus 15 plus 15, which gives me the answer of 60. And then I've got 5% extra, so I need to add on 7.5. So 67.5 is 45% of 150. So I hope that you found this skill not too difficult. Moving that decimal place one spot, finding half of a number, and then adding these things together is the fundamental idea that we need to be on top of when dealing with these percentages. In the next lesson, we're going to have a look at another way to find kind of uglier numbers. When we've got things like 37%, 17%, numbers that don't end in a 0 and a 5 can be a little bit more confusing. But following these same principles is exactly where we want to be. And if you're on top of this, I think you're going to smash this topic. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you later.